The research station New Horizon floated quietly in the asteroid belt, just another small human outpost studying space rocks and cosmic dust. Commander Ji-hoon Choi was finishing his morning coffee when the proximity alarm started screaming. "What's happening out there?" He called to his communications officer, but the answer came through the main viewing window instead of words. 3 ships were approaching, if you could call them ships. They looked more like giant sea creatures swimming through space, their hulls pulsing with veins of light, expanding and contracting like they were breathing. Ji-hoon had been in space for 15 years. He'd seen prototype ships, alien artifacts, even the mysterious ruins on Mars. But nothing had prepared him for this. The ships moved wrong, too smooth and organic, like living things that had learned to fly between stars. "Get me Earth defense. Command right now," he ordered, his hands already moving to the emergency protocols. Around him, his crew of 12 researchers and technicians scrambled to their stations. These weren't soldiers. They were scientists studying asteroids, not preparing for war. The first impact came without warning. Something punched through their hull like it was made of paper, not reinforced steel designed to handle space debris at high speeds. Then another impact, and another. Ji-hoon realized these weren't random hits. The aliens were placing their boarding pods with surgical precision, targeting specific sections of the station. "Security Chief Han, get your people armed and ready," Ji-hoon shouted into his communicator. So young. Han was already moving, grabbing the station's small supply of emergency weapons. New Horizon had 6 security rifles and some mining tools, hardly enough to fight off a serious threat. But Han had served in Earth's military before joining the research station, and she wasn't going to give up without a fight. The first aliens came through the breach like nightmares made real. 12 feet tall, covered in armor that seemed to shift and change color as Ji-hoon watched. Their faces were hidden behind masks that looked like they were made from the bones of different creatures, all twisted together. They moved too fast, too coordinated, like they shared the same mind. Han opened fire with her rifle, the energy bolts striking the lead alien center mass. The creature staggered for a moment, then kept coming. Where the energy had hit, its armor was already changing, becoming reflective, adapting to protect against the same attack. "The weapons aren't working," Han shouted, falling back as her team tried to create a defensive line. But it was useless. The aliens moved through their defenses like they weren't even there. What happened next would haunt Ji-hoon for the rest of his very short life. The aliens didn't kill his crew, they captured them. One by one they dragged screaming researchers into the corridor where they had set up some kind of medical equipment. But this wasn't healing equipment. Ji-hoon watched through security cameras as the aliens began taking his people apart while they were still alive. Not killing them, but studying them. They wanted to understand how humans worked, how their bodies moved, how their minds thought, how they felt pain and fear. Dr. Kim, their biologist, was conscious when they opened his chest to examine his heart. Engineer Park was still talking, begging for his life as they carefully removed pieces of his brain to study. The aliens worked with the calm precision of scientists conducting an experiment. But they were learning more than just anatomy. Ji-hoon realized they were somehow absorbing the knowledge from his crew's minds. When they finished with Dr. Kim, one of the aliens walked to a computer terminal and began operating it perfectly, using Kim's own memories and skills. Ji-hoon knew he had minutes at most before they found him in the command center. With shaking hands, he activated the emergency transmission system and began recording everything he was seeing. The way the aliens moved, how they communicated with each other, their technology, their methods, everything that might help Earth defend itself. "This is Commander Ji-hoon Choi of Research Station New Horizon," he whispered into the recorder. "We are under attack by unknown aliens. They don't just kill, they study us, learn from us. They're adapting to our weapons in real time. They've been here before. The artifacts we found on Mars, I think these are the same creatures." Behind him, he could hear the aliens cutting through the command center door. He had seconds left. "They're coming back to finish what they started. Tell Earth, don't fight them like a normal enemy. They learn too fast, find another way." The door exploded inward, just as he hit the transmission button. On Earth, deep beneath the Colorado mountains, Admiral Tae Hyun Yoon was having the worst day of his military career. The message from New Horizon had arrived just 20 minutes ago, and he was still trying to process what he'd seen. Standing beside him in the command center was Dr. Mi-Young Jung, the archaeologist who had been studying the Mars ruins for the past 5 years. She had gone pale as snow while watching Ji-hoon's final transmission. "You recognize them," Yoon said. "It wasn't a question. The bone structures, the way they move. Admiral, I've been staring at fossils of these creatures for years. We found them in the rock layers from 65 million years ago, mixed in with dinosaur bones. We always assumed they were just another extinct species. But they're not extinct. No. And Admiral, we found evidence of technology in those same rock layers, advanced materials that shouldn't have existed back then. We thought it was contamination, samples that got mixed up somehow." Yoon felt a cold certainty settle in his stomach. "You're telling me these things wiped out the dinosaurs?" "The asteroid. Impact that killed the dinosaurs. What if it wasn't an asteroid? What if it was them finishing their harvest before leaving Earth behind? Then why come back now?" Dr. Jung pulled up holographic displays of the Mars excavation sites. "Because they left something unfinished. The fossil evidence shows they were interrupted, forced to leave quickly. Maybe another species fought them off, or maybe something else called them away. But now they're back. To finish the job. To finish what they started 65 million years ago. Complete extinction of all complex life on Earth. Around them, alarms began wailing as Earth's deep space sensors picked up massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system. The main invasion fleet was coming, and humanity had less than 72 hours to prepare for a war against an enemy that had already killed the planet once before. Yoon looked at the tactical displays showing Earth's defenses, ships, weapons, shields that had seemed so advanced just hours ago. Now they looked like toys compared to what was coming. "Dr. Jung, I need you to tell me everything you know about these creatures, every fossil, every artifact, every theory you have. Admiral, if I'm right about what they are, then conventional warfare won't work. They adapt too quickly, learn too fast. Then we'll have to find an unconventional way to fight them." As the klaxons echoed through the command center, humanity began preparing for a war unlike anything in their history. The research station, New Horizon, drifted peacefully through the asteroid belt, its crew of 12 going about their daily routine of studying space rocks and monitoring deep space signals. Commander Ji-hoon Choi was reviewing the morning reports when the long-range sensors started beeping with an unusual reading. "Commander, we've got 3 objects approaching from Sector 7, called out sensor operator Lee Min-sik from his station. "They're not showing up as asteroids or known ships." Ji-hoon moved to the main viewing screen and felt his blood turn to ice. 3 massive shapes were gliding toward them through the darkness of space, but they didn't look like any spacecraft he'd ever seen. They moved like living creatures, pulsing, breathing, expanding and contracting as if they had lungs and hearts, beating inside metallic shells. The ships were beautiful in a terrifying way. Their hulls were smooth and curved like whale skin, covered in patterns that shifted and changed colors. Veins of blue light ran along their surfaces, pulsing in rhythm like blood flowing through arteries. They made no sound, but somehow Ji-hoon could feel them getting closer, as if they were predators stalking prey. "Get me a direct line to Earth Defense Command right now," Ji-hoon ordered, his training kicking in despite the fear crawling up his spine. Priority Alpha Emergency Protocol. Communications Officer Park Soo-jin was already working frantically at her station. "I'm trying, sir, but there's some kind of interference. It's like these ships are jamming our signals just by being here." The first impact came without warning. Something slammed into their hull with tremendous force, making the entire station shake. Emergency lights flickered on as breach alarms started screaming throughout the corridors. "Hull breach in Section C," reported Engineer Kim Woo-bin. "Whatever. Hit us, went straight through our outer armor like it wasn't even there." Then came another impact, and another. But these weren't random attacks. Ji-hoon realized the aliens were placing their boarding pods with surgical precision, targeting specific areas of the station. They knew exactly where to hit to disable their defenses without destroying the whole station. Security Chief So Young-han was already grabbing weapons from the emergency locker. New Horizon wasn't a military station. They had 6 security, rifles and some mining equipment for protection against pirates. Han had served 5 years in Earth's Space Marines before taking this peaceful research job, but she'd never faced anything like this. "All crew members, this is Security Chief Han," she announced over the intercom. "We have hostile borders. Move to defensive positions and stay calm." The first alien came through the breach like something from a nightmare, 12 feet tall, covered in armor that seemed to be made from a dozen different materials, all fused together. Its helmet looked like it was carved from bone with glowing red sensors where eyes should be. The creature moved too smoothly, too perfectly coordinated, as if it was part of a larger organism. Han opened fire with her rifle, the energy blast hitting the alien square in the chest. The creature stumbled back a step, then looked down at where it had been hit. As Ji-hoon watched in horror, the alien's armor began to change. The area where the energy bolt had struck became shiny and reflective, adapting to protect against the same type of attack. "It's learning from our weapons," Han shouted as more aliens poured through the breach. "Fall back to Section B." But falling back didn't help. The aliens moved through the station's corridors like they had studied the blueprints for years. They knew exactly where each crew member was hiding, exactly how to corner them without damaging the station's critical systems. What happened next would be burned into Ji-hoon's memory forever. The aliens didn't kill his crew. They captured them. One by one, they dragged screaming researchers and technicians to what looked like a mobile laboratory they had set up in the main corridor. Dr. Nam Jin-woo, their chief biologist, was the first to be taken. Ji-hoon watched through security cameras as the aliens strapped him to a table and began their examination. They weren't trying to hurt him, they were studying him, taking him apart piece by piece while he was still conscious, still aware of what was happening. The aliens worked with cold, scientific precision. They examined Dr. Nam's organs, tested his reflexes, even opened his skull to study his brain, while he begged them to stop. But the worst part was what happened after they finished. One of the aliens touched a device to Dr. Nam's forehead, and suddenly it began operating the station's computer systems with perfect knowledge, using the dead man's own memories and skills. Engineer. Kim was next, then Communications Officer Park. Each time the process was the same: careful dissection, complete analysis, then absorption of all their knowledge and memories. The aliens were learning everything about humans, about their technology, about Earth itself. Ji-hoon knew he had minutes before they found him in the command center. With trembling hands, he activated the emergency recording system and began transmitting everything he could see back to Earth. "This is Commander Ji-hoon Choi of Research Station. New Horizon," he whispered into the recorder. "We are under attack by unknown hostile aliens. They call themselves the Kethmori. They don't just kill, they study us, learn from us, take our memories and knowledge." He could hear them cutting through the command center door with some kind of energy tool. The metal was glowing red-hot and starting to melt. "They adapt to our weapons in real time. Their armor changes to protect against whatever we use against them. They've done this before. I think they're the same creatures we found fossils of on Mars. They're not here to conquer us. They're here to harvest us." The door exploded inward just as he hit the final transmission button. On Earth, deep in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Tae-hyun-yoon stared at the recording that had just arrived from the asteroid belt. Around him, his staff officers watched in stunned silence as Commander Choi's final message played on the main screen. Standing next to the Admiral was Dr. Mi Young-jung, the archaeologist who had spent the last 5 years studying the mysterious ruins discovered in the Martian polar ice caps. Her face had gone completely white as she watched the aliens work. "You recognize them," Admiral Yoon said quietly. "The bone structure of their armor, the way they move in perfect coordination. Admiral, I've been staring at fossils of these exact creatures for years. We found them buried in rock layers that are 65 million years old, mixed in with dinosaur bones. But that's impossible. These are clearly an advanced spacefaring species." Dr. Jung pulled up holographic displays of the Mars excavation site. "We also found traces of advanced technology in those same rock layers. Materials that shouldn't have existed on ancient Earth. Metal alloys, energy signatures, even what looked like spacecraft fragments. We always assumed it was some kind of contamination, that modern materials had somehow gotten mixed into the ancient samples. Admiral Yoon felt a terrible understanding dawning on him. You're saying these creatures were on Earth 65 million years ago? The asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs, what if it wasn't an asteroid at all? What if it was them finishing their harvest before leaving Earth behind as a dead world? Then why are they back now? Because they left the job unfinished. The fossil evidence shows they departed suddenly, maybe interrupted by some threat or called away to fight elsewhere, but now they're back to complete what they started. Around them, emergency alarms began wailing as Earth's deep space monitoring stations detected massive energy signatures approaching from the outer solar system. The main Kethemori invasion fleet was coming, and humanity had less than 72 hours to prepare for a war against an enemy that had already sterilized their planet once before. Admiral Yoon looked at the tactical displays showing Earth's defenses. Orbital platforms, missile systems, energy shields that had seemed so advanced just hours ago. Now they looked like primitive tools compared to what was coming. The age of humanity's innocence was over. The real predators had returned to finish their ancient work. The alien invasion started exactly how their ancient memories told them it should. Massive ships appeared in Earth's sky and began raining destruction down on our cities. These weren't just any aliens, though. These were the Kethemori, 12-foot-tall creatures that had conquered countless worlds across the galaxy. They were the ultimate hunters, and Earth was supposed to be just another easy target. Major Dongwook Lee pressed himself against the broken concrete in what used to be downtown Seoul. Through the smoke and rubble, he watched these towering alien hunters moving through the destroyed streets. They walked with the confidence of predators who had never truly been challenged. Their massive forms cast long shadows as they searched for human survivors to add to their collection. "Listen carefully," Lee whispered into his radio, keeping his voice so low it was barely audible. "These things expect us to panic and run around screaming. They expect us to form big armies and march out to meet them in open battle. We're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to give them pure chaos." The Kethemori had shared memories passed down through their species for thousands of years. Every conquest, every successful hunt, every moment of triumph was stored in their collective consciousness. But there was something they had never encountered before, an enemy that refused to play by the rules of war. Deep beneath the city, Sergeant Yunbi Park led her small team through the maze of subway tunnels. The aliens above had no idea that an entire network of passages ran beneath their feet. These creatures might be master hunters on open battlefields, but they had never faced an enemy that could appear and disappear like ghosts in an urban environment. Park's squad emerged from a maintenance tunnel directly behind a group of 6 Kethemori soldiers. The aliens were so focused on scanning the area ahead of them that they never thought to check behind. In their shared memories, prey always ran forward, never doubled back to attack. The improvised explosives were simple but devastatingly effective. Park's team had learned that the aliens' superior technology meant nothing when an entire city block collapsed on top of them. The concrete and steel that humans had built to shelter themselves became weapons against the invaders. The proud hunters found themselves buried alive in tombs made of humanity's own construction. Meanwhile, in the frozen wastelands of the Arctic, Lieutenant Woo Jin Kim was discovering something fascinating about these supposedly perfect predators. Despite all their biological advantages and adaptive abilities, the Kethemori had limitations that nobody had expected. Kim's team had set up liquid nitrogen traps throughout the tundra. When the alien hunting party stepped into these invisible snares, their advanced exoskeletons froze solid in seconds. The creatures that could adapt to almost any environment couldn't handle the extreme temperature shock of going from scorching heat to below freezing cold in the span of minutes. "Their neural networks are shutting down," Kim reported over the radio as he watched another group of aliens stumble around in confusion. "When their body temperature drops too fast, they lose coordination. It's like their hive mind connection gets scrambled." The aliens had spent millennia perfecting their hunting techniques on worlds with predictable environments. But Earth was different. Humans had learned to survive in deserts, frozen wastelands, dense jungles, and everything in between. They knew how to use their planet's harsh conditions as weapons. Back in her hidden underground laboratory, Dr. Eugene Seo was monitoring the alien communication networks. What she discovered was perhaps the most shocking revelation of the entire war. The mighty Kethmori hive mind, which had coordinated the conquest of dozens of worlds, was beginning to break down. "Something incredible is happening," Seo reported to the resistance commanders. When individual Kethmori experience fear or confusion, it creates ripple effects throughout their entire network. It's like a feedback loop that gets stronger and stronger. The aliens had never needed to deal with fear before. They had always been the predators, never the prey. Their hive mind was designed to share information about successful hunts and coordinate attacks. It wasn't built to handle the psychological trauma of being hunted themselves. Every time a Kethmori soldier got trapped in collapsing rubble or frozen in a nitrogen snare, the terror and confusion spread to every other alien. Connected to the network, the shared experience of helplessness was something their species had never encountered. They were learning what it felt like to be afraid, and the lesson was tearing their collective consciousness apart. The galaxy's most feared predators were discovering that there was something worse than death, the knowledge that you were no longer at the top of the food chain. And humanity was just getting started with the education process. 2 months had passed since the alien ships first darkened Earth's skies. The mighty Kethmori invasion force, which had expected to finish conquering the planet in just a few weeks, found themselves facing something they had never encountered in their thousands of years of galactic domination. The brood queen Zalthek stood among the twisted wreckage of what had once been Tokyo's bustling city center. Her massive biomechanical form rose nearly 20 feet into the air, a nightmare fusion of living tissue and advanced technology that had struck fear into countless civilizations. But today something was different. Her usually confident posture showed signs of confusion and frustration. Around her, the tactical displays showed results that made no sense according to everything the Kethmori knew about warfare and conquest. The numbers should have been simple. A technologically superior force versus a primitive planet. The humans should have been completely absorbed into their collective consciousness weeks ago. Their cities emptied, their resistance crushed. "These creatures make no sense," Zalthek hissed to her subordinate commanders, her voice carrying the frustration of an apex predator that had suddenly found itself outmaneuvered. "They adapt to our tactics faster than our absorption protocols can process them. Every time we develop a new strategy, they've already moved on to something completely different." The brood queen was absolutely right, though she couldn't have understood just how right she was. Deep in an underground facility that had once been a university research lab, engineer Hyun-Soo Nam was putting the finishing touches on his latest project. For weeks his team had been working with captured Kethmori biotechnology, but they weren't trying to copy it or understand it in the traditional sense. Instead, Nam and his team were doing something the aliens had never seen before. They were turning the Kethmori's own technology into a weapon against them. Every piece of captured alien hardware, every biological sample, every neural link device was being carefully modified and sent back out into the field. "The beauty of this approach," Nam explained to his exhausted team, "is that they'll never see it coming. Their hive mind is built to absorb and analyze new technology. They can't help but try to integrate anything they encounter. We're going to make them regret that instinct." Working alongside Nam was hacker Boram Choi, whose fingers flew across multiple keyboards as she crafted the most sophisticated computer virus ever created. But this wasn't just any virus. It was specifically designed to attack the Kethmori hive mind from the inside. Every modified neural link that the aliens tried to analyze would carry Choi's digital weapon directly into their collective consciousness. "Think of it like a poison pill," Choi explained during one of the rare breaks in her 18-hour workdays. "They're so used to absorbing everything they encounter that they've never developed proper defenses against something that's specifically designed to hurt them from within." Meanwhile, across the ravaged landscape of Earth, the ground war was taking on a completely different character than anything in the Kethmori's shared memories. Young resistance fighter Minjun had lost his entire family in the first orbital bombardments, But instead of breaking him, the tragedy had forged him into something the aliens couldn't predict or understand. O led small cells of fighters who operated with tactics that seemed to defy all logic. Where the Keth Mori expected strategic military thinking, they encountered pure chaos. Where they expected fear and surrender, they found burning fury and desperate creativity. The aliens' predictive algorithms, which had successfully anticipated the behavior of dozens of conquered species, failed completely when faced with human unpredictability. The thing about humans, transmitted to other resistance cells during a brief lull in fighting, is that we're really good at being unreasonable. These aliens think logically, they plan ahead, they follow patterns. So we're going to be as illogical and unpredictable as possible. The final piece of humanity's counterattack was being prepared in a laboratory that officially didn't exist. Dr. Sujin Kang had been working on something called Project Pandora, and the name was more appropriate than anyone realized. Like the mythical box that released chaos into the world, Kang's creation was about to unleash something the Keth Mori had never faced. The modified virus that emerged from her lab didn't just attack the aliens directly. Instead, it did something far more devastating. It turned their greatest evolutionary advantage into their greatest weakness. The Keth Mori's adaptive biology, which had allowed them to survive and thrive in countless environments, began consuming itself in an endless loop of self-destruction. Their evolution is eating them alive, Kang reported as the first test results came in. The virus tricks their adaptive systems into thinking they need to constantly change and improve, but there's no end point. They just keep adapting until their biological systems collapse completely. When Admiral Yoon finally broadcast humanity's message to the retreating Keth Mori fleet, his words carried the weight of a species that had refused to accept defeat. "You made one crucial mistake when you came to our world," he transmitted to the alien ships fleeing Earth's orbit. "You assumed we were just another species of prey. You never considered that we might be predators too." The streets of Manhattan had become a battlefield unlike anything the world had ever seen. Where skyscrapers once reached toward the clouds, twisted metal and concrete now formed a maze of destruction. In the heart of this devastation, the Keth Mori had built something that chilled human observers to their core, a massive breeding facility designed to turn Earth into their next colony world. The structure pulsed with organic life, its walls breathing like some enormous creature. Inside, thousands of Keth Mori eggs were being prepared for hatching, each one representing a future soldier in their endless conquest of the galaxy. This was their most important installation on Earth, and they had defended it with everything. They had Colonel Jae-won Shin crouched behind the remains of a city bus, studying the alien fortress through his binoculars. The final assault on this facility would determine whether humanity survived as a free species or became just another entry in the Keth Mori's collection of conquered worlds. Around him, soldiers from every corner of Earth prepared for what might be their last battle. "Remember what we learned about these things," Shin spoke into his radio, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. "They're strong, they're fast, and they adapt to everything we throw at them. But they have one weakness: they've never fought an enemy willing to sacrifice everything to win." Miles away, in a laboratory buried deep beneath the city, Dr. Mi Jung was putting the finishing touches on humanity's most desperate gamble. The weapon she had created wasn't a bomb or a gun. It was something far more dangerous to the Keth Mori than any conventional weapon could ever be. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" her assistant asked, watching Jung prepare the final dose of what she had simply called the termination virus. "Once we release this, there's no going back. The ethical implications alone—" Jung paused in her work, her hands trembling slightly as she considered the weight of what she was about to unleash. "These creatures have destroyed entire civilizations," she said quietly. "They've turned countless worlds into nothing but hunting grounds. If we don't stop them here, they'll do the same to Earth and then move on to the next planet. Sometimes being ethical means making terrible choices." The assault began at dawn, with human forces attacking from every direction simultaneously. The Keth Mori defenders fought with the desperation of creatures who finally understood they might actually lose. Their biomechanical forms shifted and adapted with each injury, growing new weapons and defenses in real time. But humanity had learned something crucial during their months of resistance. The Kethmori weren't really the apex predators they claimed to be. They were parasites, creatures that had grown strong by absorbing the strengths and knowledge of everyone they conquered. Without other species to feed on, they were just another collection of biological mechanisms. In the heart of the breeding facility, Brood Queen Zalthek made her final stand. Her massive form had grown even larger during the battle, incorporating pieces of human technology and alien biotechnology into her body as she fought. She was evolution in fast-forward, adaptation made visible. "You primitive creatures cannot possibly understand what you're fighting," she shrieked as human soldiers closed in around her. "We are evolution itself. We are the future of all life. Earn the galaxy. You cannot defeat the fundamental forces of biological progress." Dr. Jung's voice came through the facility's communication system, calm and clear, despite the chaos of battle raging around them. "You're absolutely right that we can't defeat evolution," she said. "But we don't need to defeat it. We just need to teach it a lesson." The termination virus began spreading through the Kethmori forces faster than they could adapt to it. But this wasn't just another biological weapon. It was specifically designed to turn their greatest strength against them. Instead of fighting their adaptive mechanisms, the virus encouraged them, pushing them to evolve faster and faster until their biological systems couldn't keep up. The Kethmori began consuming themselves from the inside out. Their bodies, desperate to adapt to the virus, started breaking down their own essential systems in a frantic attempt to evolve new defenses. It was like watching a biological computer program stuck in an endless loop, running faster and faster until it finally crashed, completely. Zalthek's final moments were both terrifying and tragic. Her body began shifting uncontrollably, growing new limbs and organs before dissolving them, and growing different ones. She had become trapped in a cycle of endless adaptation that would never find a solution. "What have you done to us?" she gasped. As her form began to collapse in on itself, "We gave you exactly what you wanted," Jung replied. "Perfect evolution. Unfortunately for you, perfection in biology usually means death." As the Kethmori fleet began its chaotic retreat from Earth's orbit, their ships broadcasting distress signals in languages no human could understand, humanity prepared to send their own message to the galaxy. Admiral Yoon stood in the rebuilt communications center, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so threatening. The message he was about to broadcast would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. "To all civilizations receiving this transmission," he began, "the age of Kethmori dominance is over. Earth extends its protection to any world that desires freedom from their tyranny. But let this message be absolutely clear to anyone who might consider humanity an easy target. We are nobody's prey. We have learned what it takes to survive in a hostile galaxy, and we are prepared to become whatever we need to be to protect what we love." The galaxy now had new apex predators, and they had proven they were willing to embrace their darker nature when pushed to the edge of extinction.